what do you say we do a video on the Sago Palm? Sometimes I ignore the more common plants, but it's probably better if I cover them because that way people know. 'Cause everybody loves sagos. There's a lot to know about them. These things are pretty ancient. They are definitely older than palm trees, much older. These were around when the dinosaurs were around, whereas palm trees were not. This is Cycas revoluta. It is native to Japan, and there's some beautiful photos I've seen of its habitat, or at least one section of its habitat, where it's growing on all these cliffs above the ocean in Japan, and it looks really good. But here I am down in San Diego. This tree, I don't think they ever fertilize these trees, but look, it maintains a really beautiful dark green. This is a really big head for one of these things. It's probably reaching 7 feet across, the one on the right. The one on the left is a little shorter, but it's probably a good 7 as well. You can see it actually will spout babies off the trunk and either down on the ground or even further up in the trunk, and it can bifurcate sometimes, fairly often, where it will branch above ground, just like a branching woody tree. You can cut off the babies off the bottom if you want to see more of the trunk. It's nice to give it a really good trim job. You can even trim it back a little bit more than they've done here. You can see down below, there's the real tight trunk right there. So eventually the stuff will fall off and it'll look like that. These things are probably hardy to 15 degrees, I've heard. I've never seen them damaged, truthfully, but I've never seen, it's never gotten that cold where I live. So you guys can comment. Ooh, hello. Yeah, let us know what you've seen in really harsh climates on how cold you've seen these things survive at and how they behaved. But it's more like a succulent than a palm tree. It's really drought tolerant once established, and it looks completely lush, but it's super drought tolerant. Now you'll notice that the fronds are really stiff, real stiff, which is part of its drought tolerance. It also has a shimmery shine to it that reflects the sun. That's part of its drought tolerance, but because they're so stiff, they don't wave around in the wind, so they don't lose moisture that way, and adds to its drought tolerance. Is that enough about drought tolerance? Anyway, it's drought tolerant. It's a wonderful plant to put in a pot because it loves drainage. You have really good drainage in pots, and it can, handle quite a bit of time without water. In fact, you don't want to overwater. You overwater it, you're going to rot it. Don't do that. And if you grow it in a pot, muy importante. In Spanish, that means very important. Make sure that this thing, the roots don't grow down and plug up the drain hole. Happens all the time. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time. Because then it'll fill up full of water, and you'll wish it hadn't, because it'll die. You'll be calling me going, Gary, why is my Sago Palm dying? In fact, I have a video about that. Maybe I'll put the link in the description. You can watch that one too, in case you have insomnia some night and you need to fall asleep real quick. So anyway, that's the Sago Palm. It's a really nice palm. We always have it in various sizes. Sometimes we have big ones, little ones. What's cool, you can get really big ones, and they don't grow hardly at all. So if you want something really big, a certain size, but you don't want it to grow, like a queen palm grows 2-3 feet a year, it just goes crazy on you. But if you want a big sago palm, you can get a big, sometimes we have sago palms you can walk under. Stick that thing next to your pool, it'll just be like that almost forever, just slowly grow. See how I emphasize slowly? That's what it'll do, slowly grow. So that's about all I could think about. What I like to do with these things is to contrast their foliage. They're so dark green, it's a feather shape. What I really like to do is plant these things next to or near blue palms like Brahia armata, maybe Brahia decumbens, or possibly Yucca rostrata, or Camarops cerifera, the blue Moroccan fan palm. Things like that will look really good next to this plant because of the color contrast. And here's a couple over here. You don't want to just keep looking at the same plant, do you? You can trim them in a single trunk. Look how pretty that is. Look how nice that is. Who can argue about that? Oh, also, they're a little pointed here. Not bad, but a little bit. You don't want to stick your eyes or your nose or any of your very sensitive body parts in there because it'll be uncomfortable, guaranteed. Again, you can cut off the babies or you can leave them. Whenever I say baby, I talk baby talk. Here's some next to a boulder. That looks really good. A little bit of junk in here, gotta clean it up. And but yeah, here's like a double, single, triple, big, little. But they're always really good performing, and they'll make a real tropical garden in places where they'll give you a real tropical look in places where you know, it's you can't really get much of that, because places where you can't grow a Kentia palm at all, you can grow a sago fine. The biggest ones I've ever seen are in Fresno. They're like 15, 16, 18 feet tall in old gardens in the front yards of these homes from the 50s and 60s. So anyway, make sure your hat's on real good when you're making videos, and you know, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You're not going to want to miss a single thing I talk about, because everything I talk about will put you to sleep eventually if you watch it enough. All right, hope you snooze off well tonight, and that you're doing well, and well, now you know about sago. So I wanted to add to my sago palm video. Sometimes more is more. A lot of people say less is less. I know my wife would say less of me is more sometimes, not always. But I think in this instance, though, more is more. Look at this beautiful thing. So look at how the sago palm, over like 100 years after a century of growing it, what it can do for you. You can trim it perfectly. You can get it to have all these multiple trunks and allow them to serpentine on the ground. Not really serpentining, but it's definitely laying itself out. They can branch above ground, as I mentioned earlier. And what else can they do? You can keep some of the babies on the interior to just give it lots of interest. It makes for a fantastic focal point. This plant here is probably like a $20,000 specimen. If you wanted to get one like this, they're available. They're out there. They're hard to find, but they're there. Let's back up a little bit, take a better look at it. This plant right here, at its maximum width, is probably 12 to 15 feet wide. And it is, I would say, only 8 feet tall. So this is a really laterally spreading plant. Give you all angles of it. And, you know, I wanted you to know that's one plant too. It's not a bunch of plants, or it's most likely one plant. Pretty sure it's one plant. Perfectly trimmed. I want you to know, after 100 years of growing these things, assuming you take good care of them, trim them, feed them, water them, give loving embraces to them occasionally, despite them being a little prickly. They like to be touched. They like touch, just like everybody else. This is what you can end up with. So you can see here we have this wonderful composition of this guy as a centerpiece. When I say guy, I do mean guy. There are guys and girls when it comes to sago palms. I believe this is a guy. It's not really showing itself right now, and I don't think it might be a little bit presumptuous of me to ask it to show itself. So I'm just going to say it's a guy. And this guy here, centerpiece, beautiful red aloes all around it. And you've got this wonderful coloration right behind it of the sticks on fire euphorbia. Look at that color contrast. Isn't that beautiful? That's what we're after, people. Color contrast. You have dark green of the sago, you have the orange of the sticks on fire, then you have the gray green of the eucalyptus beyond. And you can see they've created this massive backdrop of sticks on fire, which is really striking. And it plays off some of the red of the aloe. And then you have this wonderful mesembryanthemum blooming its head off right now. Out here is the predominant ground cover. Then you have a secondary focal point, which is quite brilliant and beautiful. It is the bottle tree from, look how red these are right next to the rocks. Really red. Bottle tree from Australia. That is Brachychiton cerifolius. Am I right? No, not cerifolius. Rupestris. Yeah, rupestris has the little leaf, super drought tolerant, gets a big fat trunk. And that's what you have here. So I think it was worthwhile for me to add on to the Sago Palm video. What do you think? Is more or is more or less? Or is it just more or less? You let me know.